Hello, this is T Chapman 500, and today I'm going to be doing another project status report type video. So I think I'm going to begin with the Torina City Superspeedway, which, by the way, now has new grandstands, which, by the way, I also haven't published the new update for this track, so you're stuck with the old grandstands for now. But the new grandstands are modeled more like they are in real life, straight across even where the track starts to bank upwards. Yeah, that was quite challenging to do. Anyways, I could make a higher detail version of the grandstands, but I first want to model in the infield courses and infield details because that's probably gonna take a lot of video RAM, and I might have to end up sticking with this low detail version of the grandstands, unless of course you don't mind NR 2003 crashing on you on maximum detail. I'm also hoping to make a few other stuff like the custom flag stand as well as the custom caution lights, and also the garage buildings, which by the way there will be 3, each one capable of holding 44 cars, and one of them will be triggered with different variants based on what session it is. Like with the race session or practice, all the garage doors will be open, but with testing, just one garage door will be open, or maybe 2 so you can just drive through the garage. Besides, those garage buildings will serve a function in rFactor, or just about any other simulator where you have a garage area that you have to drive out of in order to get to the racetrack. So I'm gonna be making low detail versions of those objects, and maybe after I get the infield done and determine that we can go higher detail, I'll make higher detail. Although, by the way, by low detail I don't mean low quality, I just mean low polygon count. I suppose I should also try to get these grandstands into Flight Simulator X, but it's probably gonna look pretty unusual, with stuff like the top of that luxury box missing, as well as the back of the support structure missing. The grandstand objects were basically made exclusively for the racing simulators, where you're not gonna be able to get behind the grandstands and see the lack of supports, or above the grandstands in such a way that you'd be able to see the lack of a roof on the luxury box. I also need to modify the outfield geometry where the grandstands are and raise that up by 6.5 feet so that the grandstands actually look like they end at the ground and not continue downwards an additional however many feet I modeled the grandstands down below the ground to. Oh, and I also need to make custom lighting for this racetrack, which might actually be a challenge because I've got an airport that I have to contend with, and if I make the light post too tall, well, we end up with a major safety hazard for the airplanes. Oh, and by the way, I don't think the reflection map on the luxury box works at all, but at least it looks a bit more realistic than the last iteration did, so that's good. So I'm going to model in the garage buildings and the emergency vehicle access points, and probably put in the emergency vehicles around the infield of the track before I start modeling in the infield course. And of course I'll also need to modify the airport on the infield using something like Airport Design Editor so that I know exactly where the airport ends. I did have a previous iteration, which by the way you will be able to see in a previous video. I think I'll try and put a card for that video right here. But I'm not satisfied with the layout of the airport because I think it extends too far towards the front stretch. So after I do all of that with the airport, garage areas, etc., I'll know exactly how much room the infield course has to play with and be able to come up with a good layout that closely resembles what I originally had. And yes, the infield will be drivable. You might have also noticed that the front stretch has been flattened out a little bit because I need the track to be flat in order to model in the walls, because modeling in the walls across banking transitions is just no. So that's the plan for Torina City. Oh, and I also need to update the cameras for this track because the current cameras are, well, to be frank, complete garbage. Anyways, next project. Let's see where to begin. I guess we could talk about the NASCAR Factor mod. I'm going to be trying to run an experiment where I get rid of all of the redundant models and just leave in all of the basics. If I'm not mistaken, we'll be able to do that because the Chevys all have the exact same geometry, so I should be able to just put in one Chevy model, whereas NASCAR Sim Racing has three, one for the 2004, one for the 2005 Nexo Cup Series, and one for the National Series. What a waste of space. They have three Fords for the same reason, and for the Dodges, they have three models, one for the National Series, one for the 2004 series, and one variant for the 2005 series, because apparently NASCAR's Dodge model changed between the 2004 and 2005 season. And that's not counting stuff like the models of the wheels, which I think I can get by with having just one copy across all series. And if that doesn't work, well, I'll just get the other copies out. I'll know if that works by having at least one vehicle from each series, and I can just compare the models and see if everything adds up properly. Oh, and by the way, NASCAR Factor is pretty low on the priority list right now. I have a road course project that I've kind of set aside for a while. I think I'll pick that up instead and finish that. I think I have about 1,000 or 2,000 feet of geometry left to complete. Then I'll be able to send it off for Melon to get some AI lines put in, because I'm terrible at driving road courses, and specific AI lines must be driven at full speed. Now, because the physics update for Solar Lander has been recently published through Steam, I've been tinkering around in the code of Sandbox 2, and I did a little bit of a test compile to see if it would compile, which it didn't, and I'm reworking the code to make it easier to reuse in other projects. I'm hoping to reuse a lot of the code in the Chapman Track Creator, and the difference between the two track editors is that Sandbox 2 is designed specifically for NASCAR Racing 2003 season, while the Chapman Track Creator is designed for other simulators, and will use plugins to implement support for other simulators. And the Chapman Track Creator will probably reuse the vast majority of the code from Sandbox 2. It'll just handle that code a lot differently, and it's also going to extend a lot of that code. Plus, I want the code to be useful for other projects besides the track editors. I have some games that I'm wanting to do. Particularly, I'm wanting to take Solar Lander off of the Unity engine, and some of the code that's going to be useful in Sandbox 2 and the Chapman Track Creator is also going to be useful for achieving that goal. Plus, that code will also be useful for stuff like my own racing simulator, which I really want to get developed. Speaking of which, I have a little side project for that simulator called the Turinan Islands. I'll put a picture of it from Google Earth in the video if I remember correctly. And I also intend to show the original size and the new size of the islands. So here you go. This is the original size of the islands, compared to some other features like Hawaii, which is to the northeast of the Turinan Islands, and here is the new size of the islands. So for my simulator, all of the content is initially going to be on those islands, so that's going to save me the trouble of having to get licenses for real-life content and other stuff. Plus, I would like to do stuff like put the Turinan Islands into the Orbiter Spaceflight Simulator, as well as the Flight Sim X and possibly Flight Sim 20, but I don't have Flight Sim 20 and I probably am not going to get it for a while since I don't believe that my computer will be able to run it. I suppose I could also put the Turinan Islands into something like BeamNG Drive, but again we have the issue of my computer not being able to run BeamNG that well, except for GridMap Small Pure. By the way, both the Torina City Superspeedway and that road course that I'm not going to reveal the name of yet are going to be on the Turinan Islands. And I have a few other tracks that I'm going to put on there, as well as a whole bunch of airports. Oh, and as a side note, I also have a whole series of aircraft that I have in mind for X-Plane 11. I have the first aircraft in that series, flyable, but not really of any good quality yet. The other aircraft in the series are, well, just cross-sectional diagrams made in Microsoft Paint. So yeah, that's gonna be a while. Oh, one more thing. BitChute's logo is coming off of my race car. Actually, that's not gonna be the last thing I mention in this video. But this will be the last video where you see the BitChute logo on my race car. Now, I've mentioned Solar Lander a couple of times in this video already, and mentioned a couple things about it, but I haven't really discussed it in this video yet, so let's do that now. Now, I've mentioned that I want to take Solar Lander off of the Unity engine, but that's not gonna happen in the next major update. Now, the reason I want to take it off the Unity engine is because Unity uses single precision floating point values for their physics, and I really need double precision floating point. And I figured if I'm going to override Unity's physics system with my own physics system, I might as well just take it off the Unity engine entirely. And by the way, the physics update now gives Solar Lander an official version 0.2.0. The next major update is going to be 0.3.0, and I'm hoping with this update I'll be able to get Solar Lander to the state where we can create mods for the game, stuff like custom vehicles, custom game modes, etc. And be able to publish all of that on the Steam Workshop. So basically it's another overhaul of the game. I'm also hoping to implement a few things that I wanted to put in the physics update but couldn't. And I already have some ideas for a 0.4 update. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm going to be working on the 0.3 update, but not before working on some of the other projects that I've laid aside in order to get the physics update out. And one of the things I'm really wanting to do with Solar Lander is add planets with atmospheres. Now, a couple of the things I mentioned in passing on a couple of Discord servers is the idea of an open NR 2003. Like how we have an open Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, well, basically, I'd like to see something like that, but for NASCAR 2003 season. Now, I guess I could do it, but I really don't want to. I want to work on my other projects, especially stuff like Sandbox 2, the Chapman Track Creator, Solar Lander, and the Turinan Islands for my own simulator. But I would like to see such a project get off the ground. Also, remember the TCR Raceway? Well, that track is not going to come back. Or if it does, it's not going to be in that quarter-mile configuration. I am absolutely done with quarter-mile tracks. From now on, the absolute minimum length for a racetrack that I'll build is 800 meters. Absolute minimum. Because I am done trying to deal with the AI on so short tracks. So, I'm going to make a racetrack that replaces the TCR Raceway, is going to be at least half a mile in length, and actually I already know how long it's gonna be, and all of its dimensions. I just need to build it. But I'm not even gonna try to build any track under 800 meters in length for this game, because I just can't work with the AI with such a short track. And hey, with a half-mile single configuration racetrack, I can make stuff like the grandstands a lot more detailed than I can with a 4-mile superspeedway that's probably gonna have about 5 or 6 infield courses, one of which is gonna be drivable. So I will replace the TCR Raceway with another short track. It's gonna be a half-miler, and it might even have the same name as the quarter-mile track. Oh, by the way, the TCR Raceway is one of the tracks that is not gonna be in Torina. I also have plans for a figure 8 track that's gonna be 3 miles long. Sorry, it's not gonna be a superspeedway, at least not on chassis 5, which is probably the chassis I'm gonna use for it, as well as a few other unique configurations. I also thought of making a couple of memorial tracks. Also, for any track that I build for NR 2003 that I also provide a version for rFactor, the rFactor version will have working score towers, as well as any other version of the same track for a different simulator that also supports working score towers. One more thing, probably. I need to restart that video tutorial series on how to make racetracks for NR 2003 because I kind of set that aside after 2 videos to work on the physics update to Solar Lander. Yeah, Solar Lander's just getting in the way of everything, isn't it? But yeah, I do need to restart that series. Fortunately, I have the backups for the plans for that series, so I know roughly where to continue right where I left off. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and share. Also, I have a Discord server. Link to that is in the description. And I will see you in the next video. This is T Chapman 500 signing off.